Okay, we're back.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm just getting lipstick off my teeth, not a big deal. Welcome to Jesse and Brian Dwiggins. They are owners of Borealis Coffee, and you guys are awesome. You brought some stuff to show off, Borealis Coffee Company. Tell me a little bit about how you got into coffee, and then we'll kind of go from there, because it's kind of a fun story, and really, Brian, how you got here.
So I grew up in Alaska, which has a very strong coffee culture. It takes a lot of its cues from Seattle in the Northwest. So when I was in high school,
Yeah, Seattle.
So yeah, there's a lot of very strong coffee culture, a lot of coffee shops. Anchorage actually has one of the highest per capita coffee shop ratios in the country. So I was obviously fueled very much by caffeine all through high school. I dated baristas. My friends worked in coffee shops.
You just have to just slip that in. You dated baristas.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to say, like, growing up there, I worked at a coffee shop. Every single one of my friends worked at a coffee shop. It's just kind of what you do.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just like saying, like, I dated anybody basically means, like, you probably dated somebody if you are from Anchorage.
It just happens.
I'm not jealous.
So, like, from very early on, like, I was always talking with my friends about, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have a cafe? We should have a cafe. Let's have a cafe. So it kind of just, like, resonated with me, like, my whole life. And even though I went to school in Colorado and didn't really like the coffee there, like, I was always getting coffee shipped for me, or we were seeking out, like, the best coffee shops. Because I was kind of a snob without knowing it. Because as soon as I left Alaska, I realized, like, wow, I was drinking, like, really amazing coffee my whole life without realizing that most people are drinking something that's not, like, small batch and, like, specialty coffee, locally roasted, or whatever. So when I moved out here, this is my wife, I met in Colorado. We moved to Rhode Island after graduating and not really having a plan, as most people do or several people do.
I grew up here, so there's the Rhode Island pull of...
You have to, it's Rhode Island.
It's Rhode Island. Just brings you right back in.
You gotta come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we didn't really know what we were going to do with our lives, so we knew we wanted to leave Colorado, so Rhode Island and the East Coast just seemed like a very logical place to come, because Alaska's cold and dark, and it is not really appealing to a lot of people. So we've been here for like 12 years, and I started home roasting just as a hobby. I worked in the film industry, which is very... it's all freelance, so I would find myself unemployed for long periods of time. So as a way to keep myself occupied and to keep her from being driven crazy by me being bored, I just started, like, roasting coffee at home on, like, a small little, like, thing about the size of a toaster oven.
That was about 2010 that started.
Okay,
Yeah.
So you've been going at it for a while,
Yeah.
and now you have your own storefront. And really, what makes you different? Because you're not just producing regular coffee. You're producing really neat, and I mean, I've been there, I've seen what you do. So tell me why you're different, and really what sets you apart.
We roast in small batches. Each batch that we get is only about 6 pounds, so that's about as small of a batch as you can possibly get and still be a commercial roaster. So we have pretty high standards on everything that we roast. Like, I try to source, like, ethically sourced coffees. Like, a lot of it's fair trade organic. I love micro lots, and I love that traceability. So, like, I know, like, the name of the farmer. Like, I brought a bag in, like, this Peru, like, this is Benigno Remy. Like, that was,
yeah, let's show it.
That was like the name of, like, the farmer, and, like, that's, like, traceable to a single farm, which is pretty awesome.
So this is a guy. You know this guy.
I don't know him personally, but like, I have, like, the whole sheet of
awesome.
Like, this is his farm, this is what he's growing, this is the varietal, this is the elevation of his farm, and
that's cool.
You take a bus to this place, and it's a half an hour hike from this town, like, up to this incredibly high grown coffee farm. And it's just, like, it's a really unique story, and it's trying to connect coffee to people, because I think there's a lot of, especially with, like, commodity and, like, drive-through coffee and things like that, people don't really understand what it takes to make a cup of coffee, because there's a lot of effort put in by the farmers at origin in all the different coffee producing countries, and then it's has to be processed and then transported, then exported, then imported here, and then transported to me, and then we have to roast it. And then if we screw up the roast, or if we screw up the way that it's prepared, it can take a really special coffee and it can still not come out great. So we try to break down all those barriers and take people on that journey from seed to cup.
And I think one of the big differences that makes us different, because there's a lot of specialty coffee roasters in Rhode Island, and there's a place for everybody because people have so many different preferences for their coffee. So what Brian tries to do, and I knew very little about coffee before he started educating me, and he tries to highlight the natural flavors of the bean like wine would. So
Nice.
what is natural, where it was grown, and the altitude, and what would highlight the flavors in the coffee itself, instead of the roast profile. So if you take a roast really dark, then you start to get roast qualities, which are a bit more like bold and kind of ashy. I don't know how to describe
I don't
it.
have a French roast. I don't do anything really dark. Like everything we do is like on the lighter and medium scale. Like my darkest roast is what people, a lot of people would call like a medium roast. I've actually had people return coffee because they're like, you said this was the dark roast, and it's not. It was like, no, we said it's our darkest
Your
roast.
darkest,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and like, well, did you try it? And she's like, I don't have to try it to know that it's not, I'm not going to like it because it's not oily. It's
And
like, well, if
that's
it's
okay.
oily.
Yeah.
Right.
People like what they
And-
like,
yeah,
so
and
we get that.
And so I just told this woman, I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like my coffee's not for everybody. If you like really like oily, like bitter, burnt coffee, then my
We
coffee
just
is
do
not for
something
you.
different.
And I apologized and I gave her the money back, and I was like, well, good luck. I hope you find coffee that you're looking for.
Is it almost like an experience where, because what it seems like is you guys are going for, like you said, connecting people to, and getting the story behind it, and connecting people to the cup. So is it almost like people need to kind of experience the cup of coffee? Like that's what you're trying to do, is really making it more of an experience. Kind of like if you go wine tasting or you go to a beer tasting,
Yeah.
is you're going to get an experience when you come see you guys, and like go look and see how the beans are roasted and see how the cup of coffee is made. And it's not just simply like putting a cup in a Keurig.
Right.
Yes, yeah. So you will see the roaster in the back. The whole roastery is open. So when you come into the cafe, you see the roaster in the back. You see everybody doing the different brew methods. They talk to you and they say hey, and they have relationships with people. It's so awesome. People who work for us are just amazing. And they have relationships and they get to know people, and you know where your cup of coffee is coming from. Most of the time Brian is there, so if you have
You're like,
questions,
wow.
yeah, all the time he's there. If you have questions, ask him
Except when I
directly.
get to go to like Honduras or
Yeah,
come to the province to like go out and
Yeah. So, I mean, you do know where your coffee is coming from versus just speeding through, grabbing a hit of caffeine on your way to your next thing.
Right.
So hopefully it's a chance for people to slow down a little bit.
Right.
Slow down and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned Honduras, so you just took a trip.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and kind of what it was like, what your experiences were, and what you brought back?
So I haven't brought anything back yet. I actually just
You brought information back.
I was
Exporting
like, yeah,
takes time.
so I've always loved to travel. So as I started when I was home roasting, I started learning that like a lot of specialty roasters, they actually every year they go, they're called origin trips, and they go to like where the coffee is grown, and they drive around and they like visit all these coffee farms, and they like cup like lots and lots of coffees. Cupping is like the fancy word for tasting. So like you go and you try all these different coffees, you meet the farmers, you get tours of their farms, you see how it's grown, where it's grown, how it's processed, how it's transported, and really you just get to connect with all these different people like that are doing, the really hard, for what I think is the hard part. Like we have a really fun job of like actually like roasting it and drinking coffee and like hanging out in the coffee shop and doing it.
Yeah.
But like these people like are at, they're in like Central America, up in the mountains, and they're like hand picking this coffee, and like they're transporting it and like depulping it and processing it, and all these like things that it's so much work that most people like never get a chance to see. So it's just a really great perspective for somebody like me, like that, has never, like this being my first trip, I learned like a ton just, and like got a great new perspective, and a whole new respect for like what the people there are doing to get me the coffee that, my customers love.
And really get that backstory to be able to share.
Right.
And you guys have opened up your store is in Riverside in this super cool old building. And can you tell me a little bit about that and just what it was like to be able to have this store? And you're doing events there, which is awesome.
Yeah, so we bought a train station. It was built in the 1850s, the train depot in Riverside. And part of the process, we got it, and it was a tanning salon, which is a super inefficient way to roast coffee. All the tanning beds in there, it didn't work.
Throw them in the tanning bed.
Right, just turn on.
It's a new way.
Yeah, so we gutted it. Every single time somebody moved into that space, they added a little wall. So we gutted it. It was kind of like a time capsule, really, because we found old tools from the early 1900s. It was really
Screwdriver
awesome.
behind the horsehair plaster
Yeah.
from when it was first put up.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. So we took it down to its original studs and renovated it to the best of our ability. What you see in the outside of the cafe area, the wainscoting that goes up to about 4 feet, we found the original wainscoting underneath, and we weren't able to salvage all of it, but we replicated it and put that up.
Cool.
So we just wanted to give it the feel of what it once was. So it's just a nod to the history of the area because it's so rich. And the community there, Riverside, they are so spirited and loyal and awesome, and they have stories for us every single time they come in. Everybody remembers the depot as something different.
That's
so
cool.
A tanning salon or a deli or a restaurant.
Yeah, when I was a kid, this is a
Yeah.
laundromat.
Yeah.
This is like the candy store used to be right over there, and it's really great because we're not from Riverside, and that was a kind of a concern of ours, is that we knew that it's a very loyal community. So being these people from like outside of Riverside and coming in there and like doing something that's completely different from what has been there, we knew that we were kind of taking a risk, but the response has been amazing. People are so happy to have this little, like, what we're kind of trying to make is like a community center. So like tonight we have a board game night. We've had like open mic nights. We did a poetry night, and every Thursday we try to do something special and unique for the community and like invite them in and do something fun. She's taught yoga. We did yoga night a couple times, which was a surprising, like, really like huge hit. Like we kind of forgot to schedule an event one night, and so she was like, "Well, I can teach a yoga class. We'll just see what happens." And we threw it up on like Instagram at like noon, and we like had to take every piece of furniture outside. We had like people like
down the hallways.
Like, yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of
awesome.
fun. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
I mean, and it's so great to be able to have that, and you have the bike path right there too. So have you seen people, stopping by, grabbing a latte on their way to the bike path, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. And we know that it's going to be very much like a 3-season place, because even like in February, like when February vacation, we had that amazing weather. Like we were super busy that week, and just because it was nice. And then we get snow, and all of a sudden the numbers go.
Yeah.
And it's a much quieter cafe. But like today, it's a sunny day. It's still kind of cool, but there's been a lot of people like on their bikes again, and people coming in with their bike helmet, like, "Hey, I rode by this place last summer and I didn't see you guys. When are you guys?" I'm like, "Oh, we just popped up in September, and now we're here."
Yeah.
So.
And some of the other stuff, as we kind of wrap up here, you have a couple other things. Tell me about some of these other products, because we talked about this one. This is the limited roast. What are some of these other beans that you have? Because it smells fantastic. This one has lipstick on it now. But
Well, so I think this one's the really important one to talk about because it's really what started Borealis.
okay.
Yeah, so this is the Colombian Team Crafty. That's like one of my signature roasts. Because I was working in the film industry before this, I was home roasting. I'd bring coffee to movie sets and things like that, and I'd be like hand grinding my coffee, like on the offset and whatnot. And my friends, Davey and Cam of Team Crafty, they would say like, "Hey, if you ever get to a point where you can roast enough for all of us, like we'll totally buy it from you."
Cool.
And it's like, well, like okay, well. Like, are you serious? And that kind of got the wheels turning. So when I actually bought the roaster, I was like, you're still on the hook. Like, I bought this roaster, you said you're going to buy it from me. And they do. So like they're actually starting a movie in about a week, and they're going to be buying coffee again from me. And so this is like their like special Colombian. Like we try to play it around with like a couple different blends, and then this is the one that we kind of came up with for them. Which ends up just being like a straightforward Colombian, but it's like a really nice medium roast. It's like it's nutty and kind of chocolatey, and it's it tastes like coffee, so it's not like super fancy or nuanced or like perfumey or lemony or anything like that, which kind of freak a lot of people out.
Just a good solid
but
cup
it's just
of
like a
coffee.
very solid, like all-purpose, crowd pleaser coffee.
And then how about this
And
one?
then the Java, this is like a really nice coffee.
Most of it.
This is one of the staff favorites. This is one, I have 8 different single origin coffees. And this I buy from an importer who's actually, their offices are in Providence. And it's still a medium roast, but it has like some really nice kind of spicy notes to it, like a little amaretto. Really complex, super solid coffee. That's one of my staff favorites. And then the Peru, which is like caramel and nougat and like has like green apple, and it's fantastic. And this is probably one of my favorite coffees that I've ever actually like had that outside of home roasting. So it's very exciting.
And just quickly, I wanted to ask something that you said before is your coffees don't last forever. Like some people keep their can of coffee and keep it for 2 years on hand, but yours, it's not like that. It's not meant to be stuck around for years at a time. Right,
and that's one of the things about being a small batch roaster is that everything that we have is roasted to order. So like people will order stuff from the website or like come in. And everything we have like is roasted within a week typically. Like if it's more than 2 weeks old, like I take it off the shelf and we don't sell it because freshness is like incredibly important when you're roasting in small batches. If we were roasting 10 times what we're roasting, then of course we wouldn't be able to sell it quick enough, and then it would sit around. So that's why I love having this smaller roaster. It takes longer to get to the point of like fulfilling like a large order. But it makes sure that everything is super fresh, because after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, like coffee is noticeably like falls off. Even like our own coffee, like we've like had like a little mason jar of it like tucked away in the corner, and we went back and tried it like a few months later. We're like, this is like a really awesome coffee, and drinking it now, it tastes like mediocre diner coffee.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of good for us to see that, so that when we tell people like, yes, like the roast date on the front of the bag is important, and this is why. So I don't want.
Don't leave your bottle of wine open in the fridge for 2 weeks.
Well,
don't leave your coffee.
You wouldn't do that anyways, and
Right.
it's important. I think too is it's so good. It's just not going to last that long anyways. You'll get through it long
Right.
before it starts to stale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And do you think, and we kind of have to wrap up here, but do you think people need to know about coffee to come in? Do you have to be kind of a coffee snob, or can you come in and ask questions?
We encourage that because we know that like we do get a handful of people that come in that know a ton about coffee, and they'll grill us, and they really put us which we love, but it's also like a lot of fun to have people come on that know nothing, and they look at they're like, what does this say on the front of the bag?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
I don't like flavored coffee. Like, no, those are tasty notes. And then they say, well, what do you mean? And then it's like, well, and then we can talk them through it. And we always have like a daily batch brew, but we also do pour overs. So if you want like a single cup, you say, well, what makes this coffee so special? We can say like, well, we'll make a cup of that coffee, and then we can do like a single cup, and then like while we're making that cup, which takes 3 or 4 minutes, we can talk up the coffee and then give it to them and say like, so now do you taste the caramel? Do you taste the whatever notes? And then people like they're like the light bulb turns on, and it's that kind of customer education that's really exciting, and you can see a lot of people like that are like get it now.
They get it,
and it's really gratifying to see that we are like raising that bar and continuing the education that, with the other specialty roasters that were here before us.
But our fresh roasted, fresh brewed, batch brew coffee, people are so used to a certain price point for coffee in New England, and it's $2. It's $2, so it's not any more than the familiar chain coffees around here. So I think that's important too. So this is fresh roasted, it's fresh brewed, $2.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
First,
Yeah.
plus tax.
Plus tax.
We'll leave it there.
Plus tax.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us. That's Borealis. They're in Riverside if you want to go check them out and learn a little bit more about coffee and learn where your coffee comes from and find out.